This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great to have you joining me here in these online lessons. It's a Theory Thursday. I love music theory, don't you? Now, in the last few Theory Thursday lessons, we've been looking at the modes of the major scale and how various chords are created from those modes, and then how those chords become the main chords that are part of a chord progression for a given song in a major key. So, pretty cool. Really great stuff. Now we're going to look at the minor key, because we similarly sometimes play songs in a minor key. There's chords that come out of the modes that are part of that key, and we use those chords to create the chord progressions for the songs that we play in a minor key. It's also pretty cool because sometimes when we're playing in that major key, we'll borrow chords from, say, the parallel minor key, which is pretty awesome. So we're actually going to be seeing that as we move forward in the course. But let's take a look here at the chords that we get from the modes in this minor key. Now this really relates to the major key, and I'm going to explain that. So in the last couple of examples, last couple lessons, we've been working with the key of C major, which has no sharps or flats. So it's got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now here we're going to be looking at the key of A minor, which also has no sharps or flats, and I have this example up here on the board, and we'll look at how all these things work together. If I start on step 6 of the C major scale, I get the Aeolian mode. We learned about this when we were looking at modes. This scale is also known as the natural minor scale, and it's kind of the primary one that we go to when we're looking at the minor key, though we have some other things that can happen, as I will explain here. But our natural minor scale, also known as the Aeolian mode, by comparison with the major scale, has a flatted third, a flatted sixth, and a flatted seventh. So if we were doing A major instead of A minor, we would alternatively have C sharp, F sharp, and G sharp. But we're doing this minor, so we've got A, and then we've just got the C, F, and G. Everything is natural, no sharps or flats. So this is pretty cool. This is our relative minor to the key of C major. So A minor and C major are relatives because they have the same pitches. But when we put them in order and then we start creating these chord progressions, you're going to hear that, oh, this is definitely a song in minor versus a song in major, even though we got a lot of overlap here. So I don't have the modal names for the scales up on the board, and that's because we did the modes of the major scale a couple lessons ago, and there's the same modes being used here. So if I start on A as my step 1, I have that Aeolian mode. If I start on step 2, it would be the same as step 7 in the key of C major. I have my Locrian mode right there. And then if I go to step 3, that's where my Ionian is, so that's the relative major. Step 4 is Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, and Mixolydian. So we have all those here. Those modes are the same. If you need help with the modes, check out that lesson that's on what those modes are that are part of that major scale. So we've got them all, and from these we can create the chords just the same. Now before I dive into that, I want to explain that sometimes when we're playing in minor keys, we'll substitute what we're using as our main overarching scale for the key, and sometimes throughout a song you actually might see where we're changing from one to another. So this happens in classical music, but it also affects what we're doing in pop and folk and country and rock and jazz and so on. So the melodic minor scale is a different scale. It's only got a flatted third by comparison to the major scale. So it would have an F sharp and a G sharp alternatively to what is written up here on the board. And that can change things melodically, and it can change things harmonically with the chords that we're using through all of this. We actually, if we were to play that one, we would have 7 different modes created from the melodic minor scale. I'm not going to go over that here, though there will be a Theory Thursday lesson on that down the road, especially when we're looking at improvisation and the different scales that we can use for different chords or creating melodies and that sort of thing. But we would get 7 different modes, and it does affect some of what we can do here, and I'll just mention that as we're going through it. We also, and I also should say with this one too, in classical theory, melodic minor is used as an ascending scale, but on the descending side, it just goes back to the natural minor or Aeolian mode. However, in pop music, in jazz, and so on, we don't usually think of it that way. We usually just think, oh, melodic minor means I've got that flatted third and everything else is natural or major or perfect as far as the intervals go, and I'm using that sound. If we're using the sound where we've got a flatted seventh and a flatted sixth, then we're just using that natural minor or Aeolian sound. Another one, though, I'll play that for you just for a second, though. So if you start on that A, I've got the A, B, C, D, E, and then F sharp, G sharp, A. So that changes that sound. Instead of having the A, where we have that flatted sixth and flatted seventh. Now, we also have one other one that sometimes creeps in for the most part. Sometimes we'll play modally in minor keys and we'll use other minor modes, but I'm not going to get into all that here. It's not necessary. But sometimes the harmonic minor, which actually has a flatted third and a flatted sixth, but a natural seven. So if I start on the A again, sometimes that sound will get used as well, which affects the harmony. But this one I'm not worried so much about because we already had the flatted sixth covered here and the natural seventh covered there. So, but that does exist. Okay, so we looked at the modes of the major scale and we looked how out of each one of those we can take the first, third, and fifth steps of that scale and put it together and we get a chord. And then that chord's quality and that step that it's coming off of becomes that chord for the key. So in the key of A minor, and right now we're only looking at this. As we move forward in the course, we'll look at other types of chords with sevenths and sixths and ninths and elevenths and that sort of thing. Those things all play in here, but we're just going to look at it at the core element with mostly these triads, which is where we live in our pop and folk music, and then any other styles that have more complex things build on this anyway. So our one chord, A, C, and E, is just a minor chord. So we're going to have A minor as our one chord in the key of A minor. Now we go to the two chord with that Aeolian or natural minor. We get B, D, F, which is diminished. So we would have a B diminished sound as our two chord. However, if we were using the F sharp, if we were using, say, the melodic minor scale, for example, then this would be F sharp, and instead of being diminished, this would become a B minor chord. So we do have the option in a song of sort of substituting or switching out. Instead of B diminished, we could be using B minor. It could happen if it works with the melody. A lot of times, or all the time really, the chords that we're choosing need to work with the melody. So that becomes a substitute option there. Now we get to the third, the three chord, it's just C major. So our three chord is major. Our four chord is minor. So we've got D minor as our four chord, and that's pretty typical. However, because of that F sharp again, we could actually substitute and have a major four chord in place of that, which is interesting. Some people just think of substituting or borrowing that from the major key, which is also there, but really, right here, because of that F sharp, we can have a major four chord, and sometimes we'll see that in a minor key. Then our five chord is naturally minor, so E minor. This is unusual, however. We don't usually use the minor 5 when we're playing in a minor key, but we can, and it does exist. Alternatively, we're usually borrowing from that G sharp and getting the major. That major chord in that dominant to tonic movement. So that major to that minor, but that 5 chord, our 5 chord in a major key is usually going to be major, and it can have that dominant 7th or that flatted 7th that gives us that tension. And here we can actually have that as well. If we go up to that D, we're going to have an E7 chord or an E minor chord. So in going to A minor, I can have the E minor and back to A minor. That's okay. I can't do a 1-5-1 that way. But that dominant sound that gives me the E7 pulls to the A minor, maybe a little bit more. And also even if I was just playing the major one. So all of those become options in our minor key. Off step 6, we're going to have the F major chord. That's our 6th chord, F major. However, because of the F sharp, we could actually have a sharp 6 diminished, which would be interesting. So we'd have the F sharp, A, and the C. We could have a diminished chord there. It's very unusual, but it could show up. It could exist. So you have a sharp 6 diminished. Because the root is changed, that's why it's indicated as a change here as the sharp 6. So we get that there. Oops, I just played. There we go. Okay, so now off step 7, we have the G major chord, which is our 7 chord. And with this one, we can actually go up and get that flatted 7th and get that dominant 7th sound, the major chord with a flatted 7th, and I could have G7 there. And then we also, because of the G sharp, could raise this one and we could have G sharp diminished, which I need a good spot to play that for you. So we could have G sharp diminished in this key that would then pull to the A minor as well, but we don't see that very often. So, but sometimes. So it can happen. Now, I'm just going to give it a little, do these in order. So our A minor, and I'll just stick to the common ones, or the first ones here, but A minor, then B diminished, then C major, then D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and C. Oh, and A minor. Sorry about that. So again, A minor, B diminished, C, D minor, E minor, F, G, and back to A minor. And those give us the chords of the A minor, just the general key. But we have these other options as well. I'm going to go through it again, but this time do the E or E7. That's the only one I'm going to change. So we'd have A minor, then we have the B diminished, C, D minor, E or E7, and then we have F, G, and A minor. But alternatively now I'll go through and do the alternate ones where we also have A minor, we could have B minor, C, and then we get D major, we have E or E7, and then we have F sharp diminished, and we have G sharp diminished, and then we have the A minor. So we've got those there. Now, in the next Theory Thursday lesson, we're going to look at some actual chord progressions that will incorporate these into the minor key, and then in the Theory Thursday lesson after that, we'll look at how we can borrow these into chord progressions for the major key. Hope you're having fun. Keep at this music thing. There's lots of lessons coming out on the channel. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we got our jazz lessons. Tuesdays, Technique Tuesdays, Theory Thursdays, and Saturdays, we got different things coming out here and there. So, lots of cool lessons. Keep having fun with that guitar. Take care, and we'll see you again.
If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more in-depth lessons and to progress through a free guitar course, check out my Guitar 101 series on YouTube and my guitar method books, which all come with access to hours of in-depth video lessons. You can find more information about me and my products at KristenBromley.com. Take care.